communication plays an important part in organizations. An organization has got different stakeholders to communicate to. For example, it has to communicate to its internal employees. It has also to communicate to its external suppliers. It has got to communicate to its customers. So the emphasis is on making effective communication to each of these different stakeholders. Also, apart from that, if you realize most of the problems in organization arises out of miscommunication, which snowballs into conflict and which again results in having unproductive working relationship between colleagues, managers and employees, and which in a whole is very unproductive for the organization. So how can we develop this interpersonal communication between employees, between a manager and an employee? And this is in fact a very challenging aspect, is because people come from different backgrounds, different regions, different races, different sects. So their mindsets are different and they are bound to have different perceptions of different things that is said to them. For example, if I tell you a little thing, if you have some women employees or girl employees, they are very submissive in nature. So if you become very instructive, they will probably obey to your instructions or commands. Whereas on the other hand, if it is the male employees tend to be more egocentric. So now giving them instructions or commands is way too more difficult than women employees. Now this is not, I'm quoting from my own resources. Of course, this has already been proved by Hawthorne experiment, which was done by Elton Mayo back in 1970s. Okay, enough of theories. Now let me give you a little tip or technique on how to improve interpersonal communication between employees or between managers and employees. And this little technique is called Johari window. Okay, this is what you can see is a Johari window. It basically represents two things: the facts that is known to you and unknown to you. Similarly, the facts that are known to the other person and unknown to the other person. Maybe let's think of it. Maybe let's consider both you and I, right? So there are certain things you know about myself and there are certain things that I know about myself, which are probably common. You know that I'm a trainer and I know that I'm a trainer and I'm probably good in training in communication skills. So this comes under this open area. That means anything that is known to you and to me about myself comes under this open quadrant. Now also, there could be things which are not known to me but probably known to you. See, there are a lot of things that we don't know about ourselves. And this area is normally called as a blind spot. Maybe from my body language, from my appearance, or from my tonality, from my accent, you'd have created certain opinions about me. And maybe I'm unaware about those things. So now that belongs to the blind spot. There's the second quadrant. If I go below to the third quadrant, this is called the hidden quadrant. Why it is? Because see, there are certain things I know about myself, which are probably very private things to me and which I wouldn't really allow other people to know. Or probably if they know, they will take advantage of me. So there are things that are known to me and unknown to you. So this is hidden quadrant. Well, it's not always the case that it's always a private thing. Maybe there are certain things. You don't know how many kids I have or how many wives I have. Of course, sorry, I have only one wife. So this is a hidden quadrant. Now the next quadrant is unknown quadrant, which is not known to me or known to you. And now we can go on a path of mutual discovery to find out those things. So how do we use this technique in improving interpersonal communication? See, when we meet someone for the first time, this open area is very less. As you could see, we don't know a lot about the other person and the other person doesn't know a lot about ourselves. So this is very small. This area is basically very small. So we don't have a mutual trust or respect or even have a bond with each other. And you know, in order to work effectively, we need to establish some sort of bond, some sort of trust with each other. So we should try to enlarge this open quadrant both horizontally and vertically. So how can we do this? One of the ways of enlarging this area horizontally, which means uncovering your blind spots, is by asking feedback to the other person. So now you ask feedback to the other person, and the other person feeds you in with their comments, with their inputs, and now you are more aware about what they think of you. And maybe in return they would ask you for your comments. So now the process of mutual understanding, mutual trust starts to happen. So you can see this area enlarges. Next is about vertically downwards enlarging this open or free area. And how do you do that? See, this is where you have to take an initiative and start disclosing things or start disclosing information which are not very crucial or private to you. Maybe I can say, hey, I come from a little village in Jaspur. Or maybe you could say, okay, hey, I think I know this place, and my maternal uncle's house is in there. So now what it starts to happen, that you start to create a bond by disclosing certain information about yourself, and it builds up that rapport. So it goes vertically downwards. Now by doing it with a stranger, or by doing it with your colleagues, with other employees in the organization, now you tend to have more mutual respect, more understanding, and better bonding with each other. And as you know, all these are aimed at making your working relationships better, which in turn will no doubt prove very effective and productive for the organization.